Good morning, Qanon, and welcome to the Great Awakening. I know, save the criticism. I know that I'm nowhere near as good as Robin Williams at pulling that off. I have wanted to do a Q video for quite some time now, and I thought that'd be a cute way to open things off with. It's been a long time since I've watched that movie, and the more I thought about it, the movie actually ties in well with the whole Q phenomenon, so to speak. In the movie, Robin plays Adrian Cronauer, who starts being a DJ over there in Vietnam for the troops, and everybody falls in love with his quick wit and humor and fast talking, and he develops quite the following. Part of his job as being a DJ is reading the news, and this is kind of where we start tying in with Q a little bit. So the news comes in, and there's a room where it types out on a typewriter, and there's these two twin redhead guys that Robin calls Tweedledee and Tweedledum, that censor everything that he can read. They mark out what isn't appropriate to be reading over the air, and Adrian has a real problem with this. So there's a point in the movie where Robin's sitting Adrian, Robin's character, is sitting in a bar, and this Vietnamese kid that Robin's made friends with because he was trying to hook up with his sister, but that's another story, comes and talks him out of the bar, obviously wanting to get him away from there. And as they're walking out, they get a little ways away from it, the bar blows up. And Adrian's sitting there and he's witnessing the destruction, the death, the despair firsthand. He was due to go back on the air, and he heads to the station where he rips the headlines from the typewriter and starts to go into his broadcast booth without Tweedledee and Tweedledum getting to censor what he was going to be talking about. And so one of them comes to stop him and basically says, well, it's not official news until I say it is. And the boss guy comes in and says something to the effect of, if they don't say it happened, it didn't happen. It was their job to control the narrative, and that's what they were going to do. It didn't matter that Adrian was there and he witnessed the whole thing. If they don't say it happened, it didn't happen. So Adrian's supposed to be on the air, and he calms down, convinces them that he's not going to do what they thought he was going to do, and he goes into his broadcast booth and starts his show, and he's struggling with it because it's something that he knew happened, but they're trying to keep him from saying that it did. And he finally breaks down and just goes ahead and announces the news as officially happening. So they're trying to break it down the door and all this, and their solution is to unplug his mic and shut the whole show down. And after that, Adrian gets fired, and that's basically the gist of the storyline. Which gives me a very nice segue into the first edition of YIQ, the Mockingbird media. So I remember learning about propaganda when I was in school, but it was always the bad guys, the Nazis, Hitler, that were doing it. I read books about it, but there was no way that was going to happen. We are, after all, the land of the free, the home of the brave. Right? You're sitting there scratching. So for those of you that are sitting there scratching your head wondering what Operation Mockingbird is, I got the Wikipedia page up here, and I'm going to read you a little bit from it. You always take Wikipedia with a grain of salt, because anybody, I guess, can go in there and edit whatever they like. Operation Mockingbird was an alleged large-scale program of the United States Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, that began in the early 1950s and attempted to manipulate the news media for propaganda purposes. It funded student and cultural organizations and magazines as front organizations. And it goes on to tell about how this operation was leaked. Ramparts magazine article, it's talking about how Deborah Davis claimed in her biography that the owner of the Washington Post ran an Operation Mockingbird, claimed that the International Organization of Journalists was created as a communist front organization. And down here it says, by the early 1950s, Wisner owned respected members of the New York Times, Newsweek, CBS, and other communications vehicles. And who is Frank Wisner? If you want to get the gist of this, it goes into the Rolling Stone article that Carl Bernstein wrote. Covert Operation Wing of the United States CIA, created as a department in 1948. If you want to read up on this, I'm not going to bore you with it all. Until October 1950. But just go to Wikipedia and type in Operation Mockingbird if you want more information on it. But owned reporters in the New York Times, Newsweek, CBS, and others. 77 Rolling Stone magazine. Carl Bernstein put out an article, The CIA and the Media. It's pretty self-explanatory what that's going to be about. And then after Watergate, Congress became concerned over possible presidential abuse of the CIA, if you can imagine that. A wide range of CIA operations were examined in these investigations, including CIA ties with journalists and numerous private voluntary organizations. The most extensive discussion of CIA relations with news media from these investigations is the Church Committee's final report, published in 1976. The report covered CIA ties with both foreign and domestic news media. For foreign news media, the report concluded that the CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred foreign individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times attempt to influence opinion through use of covert propaganda. For domestic media, the report states approximately 50 of the agency assets are individual American journalists or employees of the U.S. media organizations. If you want to dive into this deeper, go to Wikipedia, type in Operation Mockingbird. I'm not going to be reading you any more of this. But let's go on and check out why this was called the Church Committee and all that. Committee all about? I don't know what this is. Okay. So Frank Church was an American lawyer and politician, a member of the Democratic Party. He served as United States Senator from Idaho from 1957 to 1981. He is known for heading the Church Committee, which investigated abuses in the United States intelligence community.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully.
Did you catch it? Planted stories. Not real. Brought here, believed here. Implying that they were made up. So let's go over a few of the Q posts that reference Mockingbird. I'm on qmap.pub, which is a good spot to go and look at all the Q posts. You can actually search for terms that you want to look for, and it'll bring up the posts that are involved. As you can see here, Q's been posting about Mockingbird Media since day one, pretty much. This is the second post that he dropped, and the first word is Mockingbird. He made this drop on October 28th, 2017, 5:15 p.m. This one over here is very interesting. It's Q drop number 113, dropped on November 5th, 2017. Social media platforms: top 10 shareholders of Facebook, top 10 shareholders of Twitter, Reddit, why is Saudi Arabia relevant, mainstream media, controlling stakes in NBC, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, investors in Fox News, why is this relevant? What is Operation Mockingbird? Active. Who is Anderson Cooper? What is Anderson Cooper's background? Why is this relevant? Snow White, Godfather 3, Speed. So I wanted to touch on this real quick for any new people to Q. This is kind of how Q posts, and it's called the Socratic method. He asks questions, and anons on the board go and do their research. Here's the Wikipedia on the Socratic method. Socratic method, also known as is a form of cooperating argumentative dialogue between individuals based on asking and answering questions to stimulate critical thinking and to draw out ideas and underlying presumptions. It is a dialectic method involving a discussion in which the defense of one point of view is questioned. One participant may lead another to contradict themselves in some way, thus weakening the defender's point. The Socratic method searches for general, commonly held truths that shape beliefs and scrutinizes them to determine their consistency with other beliefs. The basic form is a series of questions formulated as tests of logic, fact intended to help a person or group discover their beliefs about some topic. So, just as an example, who is A. Cooper? Anderson Cooper. What is Anderson Cooper's background? This was one of the things that a lot of people didn't know when Q dropped this. Anderson Cooper is actually a Vanderbilt. And as of recently, there's been some very interesting drops from Q, and there's some questionable stuff in his background, let's just put it that way. And Q asks, why is this relevant, quite often. So continue on with the Operation Mockingbird post. Post number 3, post number 4, post number 2 was up there. Each one of them references Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird. Post number 3, October 29th, 2017. Same as 4, a little bit later. This post number 99 on November 5th, 2017. We will probably be going into in a future video a little bit farther, because this was a very interesting time. And once again, Anderson Cooper is referenced and asking about his family background. Post number 6, 19-144, Operation Mockingbird, talking about Democrats, through the funding of the CIA, prop up and install Hollywood media assets. Does this fall within Operation Mockingbird? Operation Mockingbird, Operation Mockingbird. Okay, so I've introduced you to what the Mockingbird media is. Now I'm going to start to tell you the narrative that Q followers have been going with. Post number 562 on January 19th, 2018. MSM is fake news, propaganda, talking points 4 a.m., private email addresses, paid contractors, Judgment Day. Okay, so this is talking about talking points. They all get them at 4 a.m. They all regurgitate the same narrative that's been written out for them. And the mainstream media are just paid contractors for whoever is behind the narrative they're wanting to get across. Post number 839, March 4th, 2018. Do you trust the MSM? Do you trust Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter, narrative, censorship? Do not blindly believe. Fake. They want you divided. Together you are strong. Apart you are weak. Organize, challenge, fight. Do you think Antifa was grown organically? Purpose. Watch the news this week. Alright, we got another post here for you on qmap.pub. It's post number 157. It was dropped on November 20th, 2017. It reads, what is a key? What is a key used for? What is a guard? What is a guard used for? Who unlocked the door of all doors? Was it pre-planned? Do you believe in coincidences? Something else Q asked quite a bit. What is information? Who controls the release of information? Who has all of the information? Who disseminates information? What is the MSM? Who controls the MSM? Who really controls the MSM? Why are we made to believe the MSM are the only credible news sources? Who controls the MSM? Who really controls the MSM? Why are we made to believe the MSM are the only credible news sources? Why is this relevant? He's repeating himself. Make sure he gets the point across, gets the questions across. Make sure you pay attention to what he's trying to say. He, she, them. Why are non-MSM platforms cast as conspiracy and or non-credible? And then he, she, them asks the same thing over again. Why are non-MSM platforms cast as conspiracy and or non-credible? What happens when an entity or individual accumulates power? Define corruption. Wealth equals power. Power equals influence. Influence equals control. rinse, and repeat. What power of influence was recently discovered, specifically regarding 2016 election? How much power of influence does Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, etc. have in influencing the minds of people? Has the stranglehold of the MSM been diminished? What is open source? What has become blatantly obvious since the election of POTUS? Why would they allow this visibility to occur? Were they not prepared to counter? What miscalculation occurred? What opposite impact did this generate? How did POTUS recognize and invert? What happens when an entity or individual accumulates power? Define corruption. Define censorship. Define controlled censorship. What action is Twitter taking effective mid-December? What is the purpose of this action? Possible tests to understand public government response? Okay, I'm not going to pull out from the crevices of my mind what exactly he was talking about here. I knew back when this was dropped, but I'm not going to recall that information. But this is the points that we're trying to get across here. What, who controls the mainstream media, and why are they presented as the only credible news sources? And anybody with an opposing view, no matter what it is, automatically labeled a conspiracy. I thought that was the point of the free press, was if somebody saw things a little differently, if somebody thought that something warranted a little investigation, it would be looked into instead of just off the cuff dismissed, calling it a conspiracy. Doesn't warrant further investigation. But how could it be possible for a group of people to control the narrative of what we're being told, what we read, etc., etc.? Q post 1841, he drops a meme in here. Media consolidation, the illusion of choice. Media has never been more consolidated. 6 media giants now control a staggering 90% of what we read, watch, and listen to. And it shows that in 1983, 90% was controlled by 50 companies, and now it's down to 6, and it lists the companies GE, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Warner Brothers, and CBS. So maybe it's possible, but it doesn't really happen, right? How about some examples?
You filled up your gas tank lately, then you don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you gas prices are on the rise. I know.
Very interesting. Need some more?
This may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some of the spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take the spring out of the step of the Easter Bunny.
Oh, it's just a coincidence, right? How about one more example for you?
Thinks it has a solution for you. Could this be the end of email overload?
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 Could this be the end of email overload? Could this be the end of email overload? Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of email overload? Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of your email overload?
Could this be the end of 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 that email overload?
Could this be the end of 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 email overload?
Could this be the end to email overload?
Could this be the end of
There are other examples out there, but that's enough to get my point across. The news people sitting in front of the camera are merely reading off a teleprompter the message, the information that people in control of the narrative wish to be conveyed. If they can control simple things like spring in the Easter Bunny step or email overload, what's to prevent them from writing scripts for more important matters? What the internet has allowed is information to be presented outside the control of MSM channels, mainstream media. It has allowed investigations into events that people controlling the narrative don't really want eyes on. They've lost their control. But we have a free press. This is all just a big conspiracy. Let's see what Micah has to say about it.
And it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think. And that is our job.
No, she didn't. Let's hear that again.
And that is our job. And that is our job. And that is our job.
There's been a lot of interesting facts dug up on the young lady that's stating it's our job to control what people think, CIA ties and whatnot. So why don't we take a look here at some of the church hearings as they took place in 1975 or whenever it was.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Sounds like a yes to me. Yes, sir, we have been trying to control the narrative. I would hope everyone watching would rather take pause and maybe do some thinking outside the controlled media box for a change. Q is in a way Adrian Cronauer presenting the news as unofficially officially happening, giving us the unredacted version of events. asking questions, allowing people to research and come to their own conclusions. I'd like to thank everyone for taking this short trip down the rabbit hole with me. Next time we'll be going a little deeper. I hope you enjoyed my first attempt at a YouTube video. If you did, please like and subscribe. I am Lion Toad. And remember to trust the plan. There are a lot more good than bad. And where we go one, we go all.